the slab is 10 inches by 9 inches. 9 inches is what we're going to roll around the PVC pipe, and 10 inches is going to be the height of my Rainstick. First step, make sure your PVC pipe is wrapped with a paper towel, and almost like a barbershop pole, so it goes up instead of just the width of the paper towel. To keep it in place, you don't need to tape it to the pipe, but you need to tape the paper towel together so it doesn't unravel when you put the clay onto the PVC pipe. Just like our basic slab cylinder, you're going to line the end of the pipe up with the end of your clay. And roll until it's overlapped like this. Now that leaves me a little line right here, and with one of the rulers, I can make that cut. Just double check whether it fits. And it does. So then we need to score both surfaces. Add slip or water to the scored areas. Line them up, making sure that the paper towel is not caught inside the seam, and push the clay together so you have a strong bond and a strong seam. And it's okay if it's a little jagged up top. We will trim that off on the wheel before we take the pipe out. And the seam should almost be disappeared if done right. And the last step that we have to make our cylinder is to add the base. You're going to trace around the bottom, and like before, don't cut all the way through, just trace, because you want to make a nice straight cut. If you try to cut with the cylinder on the base already, you will cut at an angle and create a bevel, which we don't want. Once the base is cut, we score the base. And pushing in the PVC pipe just a fraction of an inch, we score the cylinder. Adding water to the base, maybe a little bit to the cylinder also. line the base up with the cylinder, and then we're going to push down on the clay so the two scored surfaces bond together. Don't push down on the pipe. It will act like a cookie cutter and cut a hole in the bottom of your cylinder. Before we take the pipe out, we'll take it to the wheel, trim the top, smooth the seam between the cylinder and the base, and then we can take the PVC pipe out. We don't want to leave the PVC pipe in because as the clay dries, it will crack right along the seam because the pipe will not shrink with the clay. Once the cylinder's made, you will bring it to the wheel, and you can do this step, or if you don't feel comfortable doing this step, I will help you out. But we want to clean that bottom seam up. What we're going to do is just add a little bit of moisture, and then with one of the wooden rib tools, it can be either the rib like this or like this. We flatten out, or blend in, I should say, the bottom seam, trying to make it as invisible as possible. And we also want to make sure that the top is as straight and flat across the top as possible. So taking a pin tool and holding it steady. This is the tricky part because a tall piece like this wants to teeter over. So if you don't feel comfortable doing this step, that's fine. Now we'll clean the rest of it up, the top from that cut, with the chamois and the sponge. But before we do that, we slide the PVC pipe out and pull the paper towel out. So this part right here is just a little jagged right now. Let me pull that up a little bit. I'm going to give it a little bit of moisture and flatten it out. Using a wet chamois, we just push it over the top and let it run through a number of revolutions. So it should look like that. Like that. Now, this is as far as you'll get in one period, and it's going to be an intense period because you have to get to this stage so you can pull the PVC pipe out. If you leave the PVC pipe in while you're waiting for the next lab day, there's a good chance it will crack. And you want to have it ready for the next step in the Rainstick development. If it's too soft to take to your locker and put in your locker with a bag, we'll take a blowtorch and force dry it. What this does is it quickly dries the cylinder, forces the moisture out of it. But we have to be careful. If we do this too much, the outside will shrink so much that the seam will separate. just want to do it long enough so your cylinder is firm, but still soft to work with, because it needs to be leather hard for building the Rainstick. But this is our Rainstick prep, building the tall cylinder.